Hello, welcome to this game review. We'll have a look at a game where both sides missed a couple of tactics, and these tactics weren't very standard, so it's kind of excusable to miss them, but still in a time control with 15 minutes and 10 seconds, we should imagine that we are capable of finding such tactics. So let's take a look. Started as an Italian, bishop e7, d4. So white is taking the center, and black gives up the center, and here white decides to castle, which I guess is possible, but there's no reason not to take back on d4. And after d6, white plays this move rook e1, which is a bit abstract. It's not clear why we're letting black defend this pawn like this or like this. We should just take, and in general this structure is just good for white, with the e4 pawn against the d6 pawn. White has a bit more space and he can comfortably develop the rest of the pieces, and he should be slightly better. Rook e1, now bishop g4, and for the moment white will have to play a pawn down, since it's not that easy to get the d4 pawn back. So white does have the bishop pair, which is something, bishop f6, but here black kind of breaks opening principles. Of course f7 is hanging, which we have to deal with, and there are a couple of ways to deal with it. For example, bishop f6, there's also knight e5, there's something like f6, but the best is knight f6, and the reason that it's the best is that we're using a piece that is not yet developed, and this way we're not using the same pieces multiple times in the opening, and this is more economic. Okay, bishop f6, and here white missed the chance to create a nice small fork, which is queen b3, attacking f7 and b7, and since white has the unopposed light squared bishop, he can afford to do this, while black cannot really defend these squares. So c3, knight e5. So yeah, c3 basically gives up the pawn, knight e5, queen e2, and queen d7. So queen d7 is a bit of a mistake. It's not very ambitious by black. He decides to give up the pawn that he had here, and black could try and keep his pawn, for example taking here and knight e7. At the moment white is better developed, but the problems are not too severe, and black should be able to castle and maintain the equilibrium. But queen d7 happens, cd, and castles queenside, and here white is quite a bit better for a couple of reasons. Firstly, he is a bit better developed. He has the center, he has the better queen, and this king is not very safe. It is on an open file, semi-open file, while this king is not on an open file. There will be a lot of work for black to be done to open the position there. So white sensibly develops the knight, a6. Again, kind of a waste of time. Knight b5 wasn't really a threat, because it's not really threatening much, and a7 is easy to handle. Black should try to develop his pieces somehow. Okay, a6, bishop f4, white continues development, g5, and here white comes up with this kind of tactic, knight a4, this in-between move, not reacting to the bishop, but unfortunately this is a big blunder, because white missed black's rather simple forcing answer, which is queen b5. Very nice move. And now suddenly everything is hanging for white. The queen is hanging, the bishop is hanging, there is no fork on b6 anymore, and if we take the queen, now both the knight and the bishop are hanging, and white will lose a piece. So of course knight a4 is very tempting to try to get something like this on the board, where we would win the queen for 2 pieces, but we have to expect good moves from our opponent, and here queen b5 is a forcing move because it attacks the queen. Instead black plays this move b5, but this is a bit too late because white is the first one to start taking stuff. Knight b6, white takes the queen, black takes the queen. Now white's both pieces are hanging, but he can get rid of the pressure with knight f6, which is perhaps what black missed while calculating this. Now if here, then white is easily winning here. And eventually we got to this position. where white is a lot better because of the terrible pawn structure for black, and these pawns will both probably drop. Black is still undeveloped, his king is slightly weak, so the rest of the game is quite simple. White starts with, black plays f3, which is probably the best chance to give up the pawn like this, and white plays g3, which is very ambitious. He wants to take on f3 with a piece to not ruin his structure. c6, knight c3, and eventually white rounds up one of the pawns, later rounds up another pawn. Here e6 is a nice move. Black plays king c7, the pawn is pinned for the moment, but after king f1 this is now threatened, and at this point black is down 2 pawns. White also has a big passed pawn. He has a 4-on-1 majority, which means he could get a 3-on-0 majority if he wanted to, while black's 4-on-3 majority on the king side cannot move, which means white is basically like 3 pawns up at this point. King d6, but this blunders a piece to e7, and the rest of the game is not entirely interesting. White gets the chance to go to a pawn endgame with a knight up, and to end the pawn up as well, and from here white converts rather simply, just by pushing his pawns, advancing his knight. And also one last moment here was c3, and it's important in online chess not to pre-move such positions, because there's always some trick that the opponent can do. And here, if we for example play something like g5, black would get chances to here white is even here winning, but this is not necessary. We just take the pawn and black has no more chances.